So I am April Mayan Cecilia, and I will be presenting critical and postmodern perspectives in education. Now let's take a look at the second slide. Critical and postmodern perspectives in education offer profound insights on examining how education works in structures and functions, question traditional ideas through traditional paradigms, and propose new ways to create a more just and inclusive learning environment through transformative practices. And let's proceed to critical theory and postmodernism. So here is the table that categorizes three key educational concepts with the list of theorists and focus areas. The first one is power and ideology in education. So the key theorists are Freire, Gramsci, and Bourdieu. And they focus on how education reinforces power structure, like benefiting the wealthy and powerful. Hegemony means the way dominant ideas become common sense, according to Gramsci. Economic class Economic or classic inequalities refers to how education favors the rich over the poor. This is bourgeois' idea of cultural capital and ideological control. Schools shape how students think, often reinforcing obedience rather than critical thinking. This is the banking model of education by Freyers. The second one is the construction of grand narratives. And the key theories are Lyotard, Foucault, and Derrida. Challenging Western dominated knowledge questions whether one true version of history exists. Multiple truths, discourse analysis, multiple truths. There is not just one way to learn or know something. Discourse analysis refers to who controls knowledge, and Foucault says those in power shape how we think. For the emancipatory education, the theories are Freire, Giraud, and Hawkes, and they emphasize empowering students to challenge inequality, education as liberation, which means not just about learning facts, but about questioning injustices, and social justice, referring to the schools that should teach students how to fight for their rights. As a summary, critical theory focuses on how education reinforces inequality. Postmodernism questions the dominant narratives in education, and critical pedagogy advocates for empowering students to fight for justice. And so let's have the power, ideology, and resistance in Philippine education. So to relate it into Philippine education, power and ideology in the Philippine education system means education is not just about learning facts. It is also about who decides what knowledge is important. Because many Philippine textbooks still focus on Western history and American contributions, while Filipino resistance and indigenous knowledge are downplayed. Another one is private schools and elite universities provide better education opportunities, while public schools struggle with overcrowding and lack of resources. Critical perspective says this is unfair. Education should empower all Filipinos, not just the privileged few. The second is the role of colonial discourses and globalization. Schools often teach one version of history and knowledge, and that is unfair. And in this, let's have number three, emancipatory and decolonized education in the Philippines. Many schools still use the banking method where teachers give students information to memorize instead of encouraging them to think for themselves. This system trains students to follow rules instead of questioning unfair systems. Now let's have the fourth slide. These are evident in the Philippine education. through the K to 12 program and economic disparities. The K to 12 system was meant to improve education, but research shows that it favors wealthier students. Many poor students drop out because their families cannot afford 2 extra years of schooling. Second one is colonial mentality in Philippine textbooks. Studies show that Philippine textbooks still focus more on American contributions rather than Filipino heroes and indigenous history. This, re- this reflects Gramsci's theory that that those in power control knowledge to maintain their dominance. And the last one, the commodification of Philippine higher education. Many universities in the Philippines operate like businesses, where only those who can afford high tuition fees get the best education. And these are the theories I have mentioned earlier in my presentation. Paulo Freire, Antonio Gramsci, Michael Foucault, and Pierre Bourdieu. For our applying critical and postmodern theories to Philippine education policies. So, how can we improve Philippine education? The first answer for this is decolonizing the curriculum. Schools should teach more about Philippine history, culture, and indigenous knowledge instead of focusing mostly on Western ideas. Local languages should be respected and used in education, not just English. Wherein before in the K to 12 curriculum, there was the MTBMLE or the mother tongue based multilingual education for grades 1 to 3. But now in the new curriculum, the Matatag curriculum, the Senate agreed to discontinue the use of MTB as medium of instruction for grades 1 to 3. So I think they need to polish this curriculum in order to make it localized or uh, uh, wherein students can relate to the topics the teachers are discussing. The second one is privatization of education and its class implications. The government should invest more in public education so that students from poor families have the same opportunities as those in private schools. Stop treating education as a business and ensure that it is accessible to all Filipinos. This was actually evident during the international and national assessment, wherein the Filipino learners received low assessment. This actually a warning for our Department of Education to fund or budget the education sector so that it will help both the teachers and the learners. The last one is challenging language hegemony in education. Students should be taught to question information, think for themselves, and engage in discussion rather than just memorizing lessons. Because, for example, in learning Araling Panlipunan, it's not just effective if we will just memorize dates, facts, names of the heroes, and also those who are working in the Spaniards, American, and Japanese regime. The teachers should also pose higher order thinking questions and also relate it to real world issues so that it will encourage students to participate. And teachers also need to impose questions like related to poverty, climate change, and human rights. And for the last one, I will present to you the theoretical works or references I have used in my report and the empirical studies and contextual analysis. So that's all for my report. Thank you for listening. Bye.